The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Open line on Mannin Line today through till 1. Call 66 13 68. Text or WhatsApp 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. A lot of talk about AI knocking around, and it seems the Isle of Man isn't immune to these issues, so something you may want to bring up. Lots of stuff yesterday we were talking about, including the local authority, who, of course, are lobbying Keys today just to find out exactly what's going to happen regarding the bill, the local authority bill and the amendment in Clause 5 and what have you. But we'll see how that goes on today. First of all, David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. I've spent 2.5 hours of my life at the Keys, which I'll never get back again. So when I was sitting there and they were doing the question time, I thought to myself, I don't know whether people listen to it all the time. I do now and again. Sometimes I just turn it off when it's a nonsense. Is what's the point really of questions to the Parliament, whether that's the Keys or Tynwald, is to get information you can't get from a department or has been evasive or whatever. Now, one of our members for Onken, Miss Edge, the question was, which of the department schools did not allow the words of the carols to be sung during Christmas? And she couldn't. The minister asked her, can you tell us which school it was? We wanted more information. She couldn't tell them. And I can tell you for a fact, she did mention it wasn't one of the schools in Onken. So it was not likely to be Ashley Hill or Onken School, or even Bemhaig, the big school. But I presume the older lads and girls don't do carols up at the bigger schools there. But it prompted me, when I was listening there, talking to other people in the public gallery there, and there wasn't many there. Some of them were that bored, they went out. And I was the same as soon as the first question was an hour. The second question was virtually an hour. Now, you could say, and I'm not criticising the current speaker because there's the deputy speaker in there today, is that is it the fault of the officials of government, really, for not bringing to account, or repeated questions? That's the other issue, Dave. Andy nearly called you David Collister then. But can I say, information we're wanting for the local authorities, the Bishop, is going to be this afternoon. They extended the question time. They lost the vote on extending the question time. So we're now going to wait till about 1 o'clock. They're going to have lunch for an hour and a bit, whatever. So we're never going to get to the business which is going to affect local authorities and the people of the Isle of Man to do with what's going to happen until this afternoon, probably about 2 o'clock or 3, or maybe even 4.
So what would you expect? I mean, when you were in Keys, what did you expect from question time?
Well, first of all, and I'll quote Tony Brown, and I hope he is listening. First of all, he said, don't be asking a question if you don't know the answer. And he said, all you have to do, when he was there, he said to me, if you're worried about something, talk to the minister or the department. Then if you don't get the answer, or you don't get what you're trying to find out then you can ask a question later on. But I believe, honestly, I do believe, I don't know what other people, there were, Peter Murcott was there, he probably will be listening, he may have a different view, but he'd be looking for the Bishop's sort of thing coming up later on. And I don't know, it's difficult getting parking near the Parliament building anyway, because you're probably on a 2-hour spot if you can get one. But so it made me put up, Andy, to Manx Radio. Why don't we broadcast the debates, which would be more informative, and to listeners and people who potentially going to vote for somebody for the future is, What were they on about? What were they going to try and get in these debates, like the local government one, is what's going to affect me and how did my member for my area vote on the particular issue?
Interesting, as you say. I mean, do you think there's been you mentioned what Tony Brown said. Do you think that still applies now? Do you think that people who are asking questions are asking the question because they've not been able to get the answer, or just because they want to ask the question? What I'm saying is, no, they haven't done that groundwork.
I don't think so. When you look at the question paper, and I picked one up this morning, there is that there's 2 or 3 members of the Keys there. And on the same beef all the time, so they're not getting anywhere. So they write another question down on a different angle, and I can't believe, especially one to the Minister for Education, why did you close the schools? Wait a minute, ice, snow, health and safety, and whatever, and then criticising for the minister or the other people for doing it. Those people in the DOI or the education themselves there must have spent hours and hours trying to get things right for kids to go to school. I'm just grateful, really, that they made that decision. They may have been a little bit late, but that's not their fault. Is they make a conscious decision. You know where sometimes when the weatherman says, like today, it's going to be miserable, and on here, it's beautiful. And by the way, I'm making a kilowatt on my panels, storing energy for the future.
Okay, all right.
I'll let you know tomorrow. It's going to be today, but it's going to be tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for calling. Good to hear from you. 12 minutes after 12. Yes, Keys question time today. So this afternoon, after the questions, Keys will debate amendments to the local government amendment bill and hear a statement from Douglas Central MHK Chris Thomas on the lease of an area of the seabed for the offshore wind farm project as well. Onken MHK Rob Callister is going to ask members to receive a report into the Bishop's vote prepared by Legco as well. So a busy day today, but we all know there are certain MHKs who ask a lot of questions and get themselves quite a bit of publicity doing it. Well, you can say that's what they're there for. Whether you think that's a good use of parliamentary time is your call. You voted them in. Right, Peter's now. Hello, Peter.
Oh, hello. It's Peter Milcott here. Yes, David's quite right. I was bored to shrieks in the Keys this morning. What I'd like to just talk about is something that has a connection with education, but not about why the schools were closed on the Monday for the day because of the snow. I was astonished at how long that debate went on. There has been a case that's not been noticed at all. I'm not surprised for that went to the Supreme Court under the name of JR 87 and G. And it came from Northern Ireland, and it was about religious education, especially in the primary schools. And the court decided that the education in the primary schools, especially, had got to be guided by 3 principles which actually are very difficult to translate into workable practice. And they are objective, critical, and pluralistic. Now, I don't know what those words mean to you. They aren't exactly notable, conspicuous for their clarity. But the point I'm making is that because the case went to the Supreme Court, the principles will not just be applied to Northern Ireland, because the case concerned the European Court of Human Rights and human rights jurisdiction. And because that is applicable all over the UK, it will have ramifications, I think, well outside the question which gave it rise, i.e. religious instruction. And I think that's something which is going to lead to some quite interesting developments in the future. If you want me to tell you why, I will expand a little bit.
Yeah, by all means, please.
Well, the case concerned the fact that in Northern Ireland, in the primary schools, evidently, the religious education is completely Christian. And the argument was from the person who took the case, whose name's anonymised and has to stay anonymised, was that this was contrary to his rights under a part of the Human Rights Treaty. And I think I'm right in saying, and I summarise it, I think the right says that parents can expect, with qualifications, their views to be reflected, their either philosophical or religious views to be reflected in the education that's given. I think I'm summarising it correctly. And the argument was that the way the curriculum was organised did not. And I think there'd already been established in human rights law that the religious education should be objective, critical, and pluralistic, whatever those words mean in practice. The point I'm making is the fact that there is a right of withdrawal which doesn't exist with regard to any other part of the curriculum. Although that was held by the Irish Court of Appeal, therefore to show that the human rights had not been breached, the Supreme Court did not agree. The point I'm making is then, if you regard the way in which education is organised, and the word of indoctrination came in, and it was held that that would therefore constitute indoctrination in a non-pejorative sense. Because they've held that, to my mind, this has implications elsewhere in the curriculum, for example, on climate change, on the question of gender, and on the question of evolution. And it will be very interesting to see whether those principles that have been established by the European Court are actually going to have an effect in a way that perhaps people hadn't realised at the moment.
What would you think the implications are for the Isle of Man, Peter?
Well, the implications, I suppose, for the Isle of Man. I mean, the Isle of Man is also has got a Human Rights Act which was passed in 2000 and therefore is subject to the provisions of human rights law. And if you get an interpretation of that law, then by implication it would affect the Isle of Man as well. And what I'm saying is that at the moment, of course, parents only have the right of withdrawal on religious instruction, as they do all through the British Isles. But there is more than one view, for example, and people do have philosophical and religious positions with regard to evolution, gender, and climate change. And I do wonder whether enough account is being taken of those views, and whether these new principles that have been put forward and have been approved by the Supreme Court are going to impact on that. In other words, parents are going to have perhaps rather more say than they have in the past.
Well, I'm just, you mentioned the three words, objective, critical, and...
Objective, critical, and pluralistic.
Well, they can mean anything.
Well, I agree with you, Andy, and I've written a 1,000-word article for a certain paper making it clear that it is very difficult indeed to know how you apply those words. I don't know. I could apply them in a way that might be favourable to, say, a position that I might have on one of those subjects. No. I mean, they're very arguable words. They're not conspicuous for their clarity. They're highly ambiguous. I suppose the one that probably is the least ambiguous might be pluralistic, which probably is referring to different religions, but it's quite capable of being expanded to cover a plurality of ideas. So I don't see why it shouldn't, because after all, it doesn't necessarily say religions. I mean, pluralistic means, I would, insofar as I can give any meaning to it, would be that you have got to give pupils an access to a variety of viewpoints. I think it could be interpreted like that. You can't just have a single viewpoint. Critical, I'm not quite sure what that one's going to be, or objective. Again, there could be a long discussion on that, but all I rang in to say was to just make people aware that there has been a landmark case that has not been noticed at the moment, but it is going to have ramifications, I feel sure, on subjects in the curriculum, which at the moment parents perhaps can't exercise much of their philosophical or religious views, and it'll be very interesting to see how this case works out.
Okay, we appreciate it, Peter. Thanks for calling today.
Yeah, thanks very much. Bye-bye then.
All right,
Bye-bye.
22 minutes past 12. The Education Minister can't confirm if teaching staff will receive their salaries for the 5th of January. Last week, schools were closed due to amber weather warnings, which saw snow and icy roads. It was revealed in Keys today. A staff briefing was sent out stating that government employees who remained at home wouldn't get paid. Daphne Kane, MHK, the Department of Education, Sport and Culture Minister, confirmed her department's aware of the communication shared and has met with head teachers to clarify that it's liaising with Central HR, Human Resources, what we used to call personnel, as the decision to close schools was the department's decision. Jason Morehouse, MHK, the Arbury Castle Town and Maloo MHK, called for a review as quickly as possible.
I'm really concerned about what is happening at the moment. In terms of teaching, it's more and more difficult to get the best teachers to come and work in the Isle of Man. At the same time, the current minister is making decisions that are encouraging our existing teachers to move away. Last year, we heard that the teachers who couldn't get back home, the classroom teachers who couldn't get back home, would not be paid. The managers who could work online were paid. This year, we're actually hearing that all teachers potentially may not get paid for work they were expected to do on the 5th of January. And I think that is really quite concerning. At the time we hear some teachers actually using the food bank, that on the 25th of January, when they're expecting their pay to come in, they could actually lose a day's pay. And it is really serious. It's something I really do ask the Minister, please could you sort out as quickly as possible. In terms of the requirement of when we get paid, there's a date in January when there must be clarity in terms of working days done. And if we're removing the 5th of January from all teaching staff and saying you're getting no pay on that day, it's a serious thing. Yeah. And the Minister must really buckle down in the next few hours and get clarity on this, because I don't want the island's teaching staff to be any more unhappy than they are at the moment.
As I've said, my department is liaising with HR, and everyone would like that to be resolved as soon as possible.
Well, as soon as we know, we'll let you, we'll find out, we'll tell you. Today in House of Keys, said Andrew, the Treasury Minister made conflicting statements about the minimum wage. If companies, as he stated, can afford the increases, why is government planning to use public funding to help companies with the minimum wage rise? Doesn't make sense. Who's going to pay for this funding as well? Presumably the taxpayer, especially if the reserves have already been used up. Well, we've got a few bob left, I think. What's happening to the post office? Text to 490. I received yesterday a Christmas card sent first class, postmarked 22nd of December from the UK, and a registered letter sent on the 6th of January. Both arrived together yesterday, 12th of January, from different parts of the UK. Does this mean that mail is being stored somewhere? So what are we paying for with this? Since I'd have to declare something as well in our house. We had somebody who had a birthday on the 23rd of December, and we got the birthday card arrived last Thursday. It had been posted away before. So there's lots of stuff hanging on and coming here, there and everywhere. If you've got any tales to tell, is your post arriving? Is it on time? Is it how it should be? We'll find out. It seems like terrible timing for the government media attention to be focused on reports of financial irregularities and concerns about governance that have been around for years, just as money values do. Well, it depends what your view is, Gaz. The fact that the government is fessing up and saying these are, and remember, these may just be reports. They're definitely not offences. They're just things that have been reported. It really does show transparency for financial irregularities, and there aren't that many of them, to be quite honest. I mean, it depends. It is going up, but it does show transparency, don't you think? Thank you to teachers aren't paid for the numerous hours of overtime. So by the same token of not paying for something that wasn't their fault, this should be addressed too. Teaching is not all about physically being at work, and like many other employees, I'm sure teachers took the opportunity to catch up on the massive paperwork and the prep they have to do at home. Not paying them because they weren't physically at the workplace, because the workplace was closed, is petty and vindictive. This attitude is what drives people out of teaching. I received a letter yesterday, there's another one, 8th of December, from Croydon, over a month. It was an insurance renewal that had expired on the 1st of January. I think the post office is prioritising Amazon, which means that other post takes a back seat. Not great, really, but they agreed a contract which they must stick to, says Henry. The post office do have... Is that the reason they've got electric vehicles, by the way? Anything over 20 millimetres of snow seems to shut down most, if not all, services on the Isle of Man. It's been that way for years. I have a weather app on my phone, which they're welcome to borrow anytime, says Tam in Williston. Was it not hypocritical of Rob Callister to complain about the use of the word clown towards MHKs when in 2022 he was dismissed by Mr Cannon over words and behaviour towards political colleagues and civil servants while Minister for Health? That was found to be far more serious than the current issue being discussed. We're still on Clowngate, aren't we? Much more, including remember that those financial irregularities. I think we'll just look at that again. The Treasury Minister has spoken about the rise in financial irregularities across the government. Data published last week in the response to a Tynwald question for written answers shows a steady year-on-year increase since 2021. 3 reports in the last financial year relate to concerns around bribery and corruption. So let's hear what the Treasury Minister, Dr. Allinson, has to say about this rise in reports of financial irregularities.
It means that in terms of the way government acts, in terms of financing, whether that's done in the right way. And we have a huge amount of procedures, and bodies involved in government have to adhere to those. Now, what we've been doing over the last couple of years is trying to make it far easier for people to report financial irregularities. Often that's people within government itself. In September 2022, we set up what's called the Integrity Line, which is an anonymous way people can report irregularities that they see. And some of these are really minor, and I suppose the highlights really are some of the perhaps more juicy things from a media perspective in terms of alleged bribery, corruption, theft and fraud, and how those are reported, and then how those are dealt with.
We'll go on to that then, because there was 3 reports last year, in the last financial year, which fell into the category of bribery and corruption. 1 the year before that. How concerned are you about those reports?
These are allegations which then have to be fully investigated.
Do they have to be based on evidence, as it were? Does somebody have to see a spreadsheet or an email to be able to report this, or can it be just a low-level suspicion?
It can be low-level suspicions. I mean, we do value people coming forward, sort of saying, I've seen something, or I know of something, I've been involved in something, and it didn't seem right, and I'd I don't know where to take this. So again, those come through often on the integrity line, which can be anonymous. Again, you have to understand that we've got a workforce right across government of over 7,000 people. People will make honest mistakes and own up to it. But I think it would be unreasonable for me to say, look, there's no bad apples in there. There's nobody at all that might be tempted at some point to do something that is illegal and is wrong. And then it's absolutely our responsibility to investigate that, and if necessary, then pass that on to the police.
Well, the Treasury Minister is being honest, isn't he? I mean, not everything that's reported turns out to be something that's gone wrong. It could be a low-level suspicion, and the fact is they are dealing with stuff. 7,000 people in government employ, and that relatively small. I don't want to kind of play it down, but the fact is the reason that we're talking about it is that the government is being honest and open about this. So presumably that's something that the people from Moneyval will take a look at. Interpreters. Is it the fact that the taxpayer will foot the bill, says Richard? We're trying to find that out. And again, I think the actual post takes a back seat. I ordered something from Amazon at 7:10 Friday evening. It was dispatched at 9:45, delivered at 11:30 a.m. Saturday morning. If I'd posted a letter or card for local delivery, it wouldn't be delivered until late at the end of the week. AC. We've had the same issue with Christmas cards. Some arrive New Year's Eve. 2 more on the 6th of January. This has never happened before. That's WhatsApp at 068. I didn't hear the criticism about the teachers from last week, but the critics should try teaching for a while. That'd give them something to complain about. 514. I purchase a lot of items from the UK, and about 18 months ago, I now ask suppliers if they'll send via Every or other couriers, as the post office has become unreliable. Hardly ever use the post office now, says 111. Our postman says Every et al. Are starting to become quite the competition. It seems terrible timing again for the government talking about Moneyval for later on this year. Moneyval are the people who are going to give us a listing as to where. At the moment we're on the nice step. We don't want to be on the naughty step, the grey list, as it were. But we'll find out.
The Mannin Line. Daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio.
SMS Trading. New and second-hand furniture from flat pack to fully built. See our range at 3 St Paul Square, Ramsey. All island delivery and man in a van service available. Call SMS Trading on 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
Darker days and damper conditions require more action. Make sure you carry out your vehicle safety checks this winter. Think powders. P. Petrol and diesel. O. Oil. W. Water. D. Damage. E. Electrics. R. Rubber. S. Self.
Make sure your lights are all working too. Brought to you by Quayside Tyres in conjunction with Isle of Man Road Safety.
Manx Solar Electrical offer wise solar and heating solutions for home and business. We're the Isle of Man's trusted experts in solar panels, Tesla battery storage and energy-efficient heat pumps, helping you power your home sustainably and save money. Call 665 5800 or visit manxsolarelectrical.com.
Come to Manx Solar Electrical.
Our island's energy reimagined.
When you want the best.
Flu season is here, but never fear, so is the chance to protect yourself. Whether you qualify for a free NHS flu jab or would like a private vaccination for just £20, Kingsley Mooti has made it quick and easy to get protected. Visit Kingsley Mooti on Facebook or call 625 040. Get your flu jab today with Kingsley Mooti.
Are you a small charity here on the Isle of Man? Are you looking for volunteers, hoping to raise awareness and chasing those crucial pounds and pennies to support your work? Well, Manx Radio can help. You could be our next 1 to 3 Charity of the Week. With daily on-air coverage, podcast and social media promotion, we can help support you and those you help. Just email the numbers 123@manxradio.com and listen out for the feature each weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 25 to 1. My friend received a Christmas card yesterday, posted in South Lancashire on the 5th of December, with a first-class stamp on it. Beat that, says 372. You'd have to go a long way, wouldn't you? I got a Christmas card from my sister posted in Peel on the 19th of December. It arrived on the 29th of December. In Onken, 272. Thanks for that. Also, I got a message in from Gwen and said, I hear things have changed at Palatine. What's happening? Yes, the GP at Palatine Group Practice. So the new system is going to allow fairer access to all patients. From today, lucky 13th, all queries are going to be triaged by a GP and then booked or signposted to the most appropriate care required. Patients will have to visit an NHS webpage where they'll be required to answer a series of questions. The link's available 8 till 6, 8 a.m, 6 p.m, Monday to Friday. The results of the questionnaire will then be forwarded to the practice's triaging clinician. Are you following this? All medical inquiries will be dealt with at this point, while any admin queries like sick note requests, test result queries, referral follow-ups and so on will go to the admin team to action appropriately. Announcing the change on social media, Palatine said, we know that not all patients have internet access, so our admin can complete requests on behalf of these patients, or another person can submit online on their behalf. They're asking patients to bear with them while they commence the new system, adding, it'll be a huge change for patients and staff, but we hope this will work better all around. More information, go to manxradio.com. Palatine Group Practice are going terribly technical. Here's Howard with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. Yeah, that's strange how you brought that up. I saw that yesterday, and we're with the Palatine, and what do you call? Well, let's just turn this radio down. I'm getting an echo here. That's better. I'm sitting in the kitchen. Yeah, and I saw that yesterday, and I went onto that site, the NHS site, and it's about as clear as mud, particularly for anybody that's not computer knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And, it's going to make life extremely difficult for an awful lot of people.
And you could be ill. I mean, you could be not very well when you're trying to do all this.
Exactly. And what happens to patient confidentiality when you're there getting somebody else to fill your forms in, which I would consider it being illegal? So, what is the Palatine coming to now?
Why has this happened, Howard?
I don't know. I only saw it yesterday. It's a doctor's suggestion from reading. It was on one of the websites here for the news yesterday, along with Manx Radio. But it was a suggestion from the doctors of somewhere. There's a doctor within the Palatine Group that is now wanting to go fully digital, and so they can just sit there and pick up their salary and wait, phone you up and say, no, you don't need anybody.
It does sound...
You get triage if you go to A&E.
Yeah, it sounds suspiciously like, we'd like you to do all this work and, to make it convenient for us.
It's like a supermarket there where you go and pick your stuff off the shelves, wheel it around the shop, and then go to a self-service till. Dr. Google will be doing the work for you on this now, by the sounds of it. And how many wrong diagnoses are you going to get for that? And I had a while ago, and I rang up, I'd like to make an appointment, or the doctor will ring you back sometime today. I said, well, I'm too busy to be sitting around waiting for a phone call from the doctor. I'd like an appointment. Oh, we can't give you that. So they are being paid by us, the taxpayers, via Manx Care. So how are they dictating the terms as such that you will now go on to a website instead of actually seeing you as a patient, which you are?
Yeah.
You're not a commodity, you're a patient.
And the other thing is, things like these admin queries, sick note requests and test results and this, that and the other, and follow-ups, they're just as much part as, dealing with sick people. Sick note requests and prescription referrals and this, that and the other, they're really important.
They are. And that when you go to see a doctor, eyeball to eyeball, he can see more through you going to see him than what you're trying to describe to him. He will recognise various illnesses that are sitting in the background. And he will be able to help you with the treatment of those, which might help with the treatment you came for. You know, the doctors now are becoming telephone assistants. And something else I found, the other day when I was talking to you about having to pay for surgery, my sister came on the phone afterwards and she told me that Palatine are no longer doing ear syringing. She had to go private on that, and it was the one at the top of Summer Hill. And they have two types now, it's microsuction and I think the water one. And she had to pay 80 pence for that, whereas it went up. The nurse in Palatine would have done it. And I've had problems with my ear. It's not a major problem, it's something I've had since I was at primary school. And a couple of times, maybe once, twice a year, I have to go and have my right ear syringed. My wife calls it selective deafness, but it's not. But she now, my sister, has the same problem, and my brother. And she had to go up to the one at the top of Summer Hill and had to pay for it herself, and that was £80.
£80?
Like me, £80 to have her ear syringed, whereas you used to go up to the doctors at Palatine, have them put the, say, olive oil or something in, and it'll be done in 10 minutes, but you have to go up now, and our Manx Care pushing more and more of the treatment system to private
Well,
care.
I'd be interested to know then whether other GP practices or group practices are doing ear syringing, or whether or not you're going to have to pay for it. Because I think a lot of the nurses, the GPs may not do it, but I think some nurses in the practices do it.
They do. Well, I think the advanced training nurses, ATNs, I think they call them, and Palatine had 3. They even had a particular nurse there, Jolene. She was very good. She's still with them, but she's trained for something else. And she was for diabetes. And she was very, very good. But she left there and went to another surgery and then come back again. But this is where the doctors have, like, assistants now, as a surgeon's assistant. The GPs have their assistants in the advanced training nurses. And if they're doing away with the syringing of the ears, what's next?
Anyway, that wasn't why you called, was it?
No. You were saying about the post office.
Yeah.
I ordered, or last week I attempted to order something. It was a present for somebody, and I put in the postcode for the Isle of Man, and at the end of the order sequence, it came up as invalid postcode. Well, sometimes this will happen, and you can alter the area from the UK, and if you scroll down through the system, it'll say Isle of Man. It'll pop into place and fall into place, but this didn't. And it was not ordered from obscure country. It was from, well, you probably know, it's called the Range in the UK.
Yeah.
It was a particular item that I wanted. And I had to have it, I could order it then, but I had to send it to a UK address, which is our daughter in Stoke. And it only took 4 days to get there. It arrived yesterday, and they're going to post it on to me. So, how come the Isle of Man postcode is not recognised? Because this has been delivered by the Royal Mail.
Really?
Yes, Royal Mail. I put my own phone number in. I got a text off them yesterday saying it had been delivered to the address I'd given in Stoke. And I've just had a phone call about an hour ago from the son-in-law, and he said, it arrived yesterday, Howard. He says, I'll pop it in the post today for you.
Well, I mean, this is interesting in that this is happening quite a bit, in that lots of stuff ordered online doesn't register or knocks back Manx postcodes. I just wonder why that. Maybe somebody knows why.
Well, this is why I've rung now to see if anybody can come up with an answer, because this is an Isle of Man government postcode. It's not some obscure company. It's for the island. And that should be recognised. You can pick any one of dozens of countries and they'll give you the postcodes. You look in the back of the old directories and they're there. And, the Isle of Man is not recognised by by the range, the company that's operating on them, and they're operating 3 or 4 different companies within their umbrella. But the Isle of Man is not recognised as being a valid code.
Okay, well, we'll try and find out, Howard. All right. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, take care.
Good
Bye
to
now.
hear from you. And if you can tell me, and Howard, by the way, if your local GP practice is doing ear syringing, or you get bumped to pay £80 for it yourself. I want to register my strong disappointment, said Ali, that a school head or possibly a teacher tried to interfere with the children's enjoyment of Christian traditions. Christianity is the dominant religion of the Isle of Man and the Manx people, and parents expect it to be respected. This is Julie Edge, who was asked the Minister today. Was it true that some schools didn't want children or didn't allow children to sing carols before? We don't know what the truth is of this, but I'm sure we'll find out. You've got to feel sorry for teachers, says Mike, not being paid when it's no fault of their own. However, builders won't have been paid for lost hours. Small businesses lose money when they don't earn. Shops don't earn money when they're closed. All these groups still carry the tax burden that pays government employees, as well as some overtime costs elsewhere. I accept that this is how things work, but at some point the economy will suffer if the growing cost of government and pressure on the private sector isn't addressed. Eric said in the Keys this morning the cost of interpretation, the interpreters were stated as £2,800 for last year, with about a third being used during TT week. I used the Palatine system this morning, says Texter 490. I found it really easy to use. I've already had a phone call giving me an appointment later today. And anonymous texter said, I received a Christmas card from my sister that was posted in Peel on the 19th of December. It arrived in Onken on the 29th of December. I posted a Christmas card, texter 476. I posted a Christmas card at Post Office headquarters on the 22nd of December, and the person received it yesterday. Mary said, I received a Christmas card on the 6th of January that was posted on the 15th of December. My birthday was last Sunday, and I'm still waiting for several cards from people who say they posted them in plenty of time. This just isn't good enough. And Kirsty said, I got a card yesterday posted on the 19th of December in Australia. Why does it take longer to receive post from the UK than Australia? Any thoughts on this? Text, email, call, WhatsApp.
Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
Riding for the Disabled Isle of Man is a self-funded, volunteer-run charity that provides positive horse riding experiences for over 150 of our island's residents with additional needs, making smiles and building confidence and skills for life. We're always looking for volunteers, sponsors and fundraisers. Find us on Facebook or call 315 739.
This advert is brought to you by Kell Properties.
They may try to offer you a tasty carrot. Perhaps they'll try to give you some stick. But whatever you do, don't become a money mule. It's just not worth the risk. Don't let anyone move money through your bank account, however tempted you may be. You could end up facing serious consequences, including a criminal record, bank account closure, as well as difficulty securing loans or credit in the future. A message brought to you by Isle of Man Bankers Association, Financial Crime Partnership, the IOM Constabulary and Cyber Security Centre for the Isle of Man. For further information, visit csc.gov.im.
Cannell's Agricultural Supplies have been serving the good folk of the North for over 30 years, supplying homegrown wheats, whole and rolled oats, working clothing, fencing, animal feeds, parts, tools and emergency supplies. Call Julia on 880206 or find Cannell's on Facebook.
Corkhill Storage, Corkhill Storage. Call Corkhill Removals and Storage today. We'll store your goods day after day, safe and secure around the clock. When it comes to storage, we do the lot. Click CorkhillRemovals.com.
Page just went off and my wife said to me, who the heck is out on a night like tonight?
We realised where we were going. It was 11 mile southeast of Ramsey. A horrendous seas, and we realised it was a trawler that was missing.
The winchman from the RAF helicopter, he said that the sea was the worst conditions he'd actually been in.
Listen to The Solway Harvester and the Isle of Man this Thursday at 5:30 on Manx Radio FM
with a longer podcast version available on manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
10 to 1 now. All change at Palatine Practice, says Ian. Not good news for a good proportion of people, particularly older people. The values of the old system where people are important seem to be lost, and I think it's yet another retrograde step. Not everything has to be computerised. Palatine, Titch dropped a note in. Titch, WhatsApp 075, said, Palatine don't do the removal of skin tags and warts now. You have to pay £250 initial fee. Is that true? I rang my GP surgery to see if they provide an ear syringing service. Kensington Group Practice still do. And another message in just saying people struggle to get appointments because GPs are so busy. So if a GP will triage online applications, must mean the practice will be down by one doctor and somebody's going to lose out. So, and not only that, what about non-English speakers? If all this is online and you're having to put stuff down, what happens if the person doesn't have a command of English? Could be. What happens then? There'll be a lot of teachers who stayed in school while it was closed due to snow, who spent part or all of the day catching up on schoolwork and projects for children. So it's time government started looking after the people who care and educate children, not disrespecting them for hard work, says 004. The ear clinic at Nobles is free, says 400. How do you get there? You can't just pitch up, can you? 004. Do you have 400? Do you have to get an appointment? And D said, interestingly, I have a friend who lives in Cornwall who tells me their GP practice has been designed the same way as Palatine's saying. She's an intelligent individual who tells me it's a struggle to fill out the forms and an even bigger struggle to get an appointment thereafter. So I think it's a shame we're following the same English models again. Thank you for your time. No, thank you, Dee Dee. Good to hear from you. And a message in also from Ali, who just said, I agree, sometimes you're not very well when you call the GP. So how are you supposed to slave over a PC if you're not feeling too chipper? Alex Allenson might want to check his figure about government employment at 7,000. Slightly wrong. As of June 2025, it was 7,800. However, in the census of 2021, says Rich, there were 9,934 government employees, if you include all local authority employees. Thank you, Rich. Southern Group stopped ear syringing years ago. Also, chiropodist services for older people were stopped. So what is next, says Andy. It doesn't seem to be uniform, does it, across the Isle of Man? It doesn't really seem to be the same at all GP practices. And I accept the fact that the majority of GP practices are businesses, they're self-employed. But it would be nice to know, wouldn't it? Hearsay is allowed in a court of law on the Isle of Man, says Andrew, and can be used to strengthen a case against an accused person. Yet it's not accepted in the House of Keys. If a member raises a question based on hearsay, this government rejects it outright, says Andrew. It feels like a case of do as I say, not as I do. Parents don't want their children to be victimised by the school that they attend. Also, we got a message in from Wendy, who just said, regarding religion, you were talking about religion earlier on, and this human rights case in Northern Ireland, what have you. I think we need to accept there are many religions nowadays. In fact, I think at the last census, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't half a dozen people identify as Jedi? So there are lots and lots of different religions, and fewer people are going to church. That's an absolute matter of fact compared to years and years ago. And particularly as we are predominantly a Christian country, Protestant and Roman Catholic. We do have some Jewish. We have Muslims, of course. We do have Mormons on the Isle of Man, quite a few Mormons, Scientologists, evangelical Christians. The question of religion comes down to when Peter was saying earlier on, those three metrics, if you like, objectivity, critical and pluralistic. How do you decide? What do you do? This coming Friday, we're open line today and open line tomorrow, Thursday. Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, the DOI Minister will be in, Michelle Haywood, MHK. Lots to chat about. I've had lots of photos in of pavements. It'd be nice to know exactly what the DOI is responsible for and what it isn't responsible for, because you get the feeling, and I'm sure the Minister does, that they get blamed for absolutely everything. Certain things are their responsibility, but other things aren't.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
So if you want to drop a note in, you can email manninline@manxradio.com or call 682-631 for Michelle Haywood, MHK DOI Minister, this coming Friday the 16th. Next Tuesday, we're live out and about in Castletown, the ancient capital of man, with the students of King William's College for an outside broadcast. Week after that, Ballacameen High School will be talking to the students there. And into February, the Chief Constable is going to be here in February, towards the end of February. Russ Foster will be on the air. If teachers are denied their pay because they were forced to work from home, it's discrimination. Other government workers can work from home and be paid, and class teaching is only part of what a teacher does. The mountain of admin can easily be done at home, as it usually, because it is unpaid overtime, says Sue. I've just received a Christmas card at 40 today, says Marcia. This wasn't a Dutch one, was it? For the late Christmas. I'm not making fun, Marcia. It just seems to be happening all the time, doesn't it? Late Christmas. I mean, they are surprising. I've been to A&E twice now while phoning to make an appointment at Palatine. And when I got to A&E, I was told that Palatine should have seen me. So what's happening there? Says Karen. Yes, Ramsey Group Practice has stopped cleaning ears. I had to go private 18 months ago. Well, it seems like if you go to Kensington Group Practice, you're on a winner. So, Andy, if the bad apples that Dr. Allinson mentioned are members of a secret society that Manx Radio isn't allowed to mention, Francis, I think you watch far too much television. What is this secret society you keep talking about? If it's so secret, Francis, tell us all about it. It's not that secret, is it? That's it. Thanks to Chris on the phones today. Back tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
WINT